Hi, this is Matt Clark, and in this video we're going to talk about your Kindle book description. So I just have any book pulled up here. This happens to be this puzzle book that's doing pretty well on Kindle. And if you scroll down, here is the product description, which is the same thing as your book description. Now this part you'll actually set up whenever you're adding your Kindle book to the Kindle store through kdp.amazon.com, your Kindle Direct Publishing account. And you'll basically be able to add your product description. You've seen that in the setup video, and your limit is 4,000 characters there. So then there you'll basically be able to add your product description. And so that's just one place you can add a product description though. You see this about the author section and that kind of thing. You'll actually be able to add more information here if you set up an Author Central account, which we'll cover in another video. But there'll be an Author Central account for the author of your book. There needs to be a separate Author Central account for each separate author pen name you're using. So I'm just going to show you real quickly what that looks like over here. So I'm going over to the Author Central, and you'll see that I have a book pulled up here, and you're able to add these extra fields. You can add a review. Here's a product description that's already there, and here's the from the author section. You can add more information from the inside flap, from the back cover, about the authors, that section you saw over there. So you're able to add basically all this other information here to that book to basically build that thing out and make it sell. So the first thing to know about your book description is that it's built to sell. You need to write it just like you're writing any other sort of sales copy, and bring out the good points about your book and why people should basically download yours as opposed to anybody else's, or why they should download yours at all if they're not going to download anybody else's. You basically are there to sell your book in 4,000 characters is how much you have. So that's one concern. It's a pretty obvious one. You want to present your book in the best light possible. Another thing that you need to think about is basically not necessarily keyword stuffing, but what's included in your product description about the author section and that sort of thing is going to get picked up as keywords, and you'll very well rank for some of those keywords even without knowing it. So if there's specific keywords you're targeting and they don't fit in your title, your product description is another good place to work them in. Just like any sort of content writing and that kind of thing, you don't want to mess up the grammar and that sort of thing by trying to stuff keywords in there, but being able to put them in there in a good place can make your product rank for those keywords in Amazon pretty easily, because Amazon uses product description. In the past, when we were sort of playing around with some different products on Amazon, we were actually able to get products to rank for specific keywords without them being in the title at all whatsoever. It was purely based off the product description. So that's another good thing to know, is using keywords in your product description, because your product will rank because of those. And then so as far as writing a good product description, like I said, it needs to sell your book. Another thing you need to think about is having good quotes from either happy customers, or even better, if you're able to get them from well-known people and that kind of thing, you can put those in the product description area and the reviews area, which will all end up showing up down here. If you can put those in there, that's good, because that sort of social proof is 10 times better than you just sitting here writing, hey, my book's so great, it has this, this, and this. If you have just anybody, but especially a well-known person, saying that your book, does deliver what it's promised and that it is a good thing to read, then that's a lot of times enough just to push people over the edge without them worrying too much about, buying a book that ends up not being that good. So then those are the main things that you need to think about whenever you're writing your book description, is that it needs to sell, and if you can work in some social proof there, that's really going to help it sell your book a lot better. And then so if you're outsourcing the writing for your book, you can have them basically write the description for you. Tell them to write a 1 to 2 paragraph summary of what the book is about, and then basically you're going to want to, before you actually add that to your book on Kindle, you're going to want to do some editing just to make sure that it says exactly what it needs to say, because it is very important, because this is one of the top things, as you can see on this product page. We go from pricing and the image information, customers who bought this also bought, and then here's the review section. People are going to read this, so it does need to be good, and you need to make sure that if you're outsourcing it, that it says what it needs to say to sell your book. So now we're just going to run through a few quick examples. This one's kind of interesting because they put this in here. So 40% off for a limited time. So they're really, selling this thing here. And they've worked in some different, nice bolding here, which can be done through the book description part through Author Central, and they have a good about the author section. And that's just one. You'll see. I'm going to show you a few different examples. So this is just one of the examples. This is this book here, and you'll see that they just have a huge chunk here from Publishers Weekly, so that's really good for them. A review, this thing is kind of out of control. I mean, this thing, there's no formatting here, so that's one thing you're going to want to pay attention to, is this looks absolutely horrible and nobody's going to want to read this. Could be amazing for them picking up keywords, but these are actually a bunch of different websites and people who have reviewed this thing. As you can see, these little double hyphens, you could basically see that these are all different people reviewing and that kind of thing. So it could do a lot better if it actually had some paragraphs there. But anyways, they actually have some good legitimate reviews here that are really good. And then here's this book, Vintage Cookie Recipes, and this one is sort of on the other end of the spectrum. They basically just have a few different kinds of things that they have recipes for, and it's not too much to this. And they could probably do a little bit better to build this thing out a little bit more, talk about the author. So this one is a little bit bare, but it's definitely on the other end of the spectrum. But at least you can read these unlike the one we just looked at. So now we're looking at this book, Fitness Foods. This one decided to use the From the Inside Flap section, and they basically putting a disclaimer here. Book is in no way associated with Weight Watchers, etc., etc. But here's their product description. This one is actually pretty good because it looks like they're talking to an individual person. Hey dieters, prepare your taste buds for total ecstasy, blah blah blah. So this is actually pretty good. It looks like this person sounds like they're talking directly to an individual, which is not a bad way to go, especially when you're writing sales copy. And so one thing that is kind of interesting, they have a disclaimer here, and they have sort of a redundant disclaimer here, so they may not even know this. Something to pay attention to yourself. So after you publish your book, you're going to want to go take a look at your product description to make sure that you're not being sort of redundant. They may just be doing this for legal reasons, but just a good thing to note, because sometimes there's different ways, especially if you're filling out a product description. When you upload your book, you may have forgotten you did that if you do the Author Central later, so it's just something to look at. Always check out your book after you finish uploading it. And then here's another book. This is actually another recipe book. This is Nutritious Cookies. You can see here, this is what I was talking about, Lee Dobbins, G. Wells. If you have customers that will write reviews for you, if you ask them to write reviews, that kind of thing, this is a good place to include them. Book is perfect for anyone following the Weight Watchers points plan. These will definitely satisfy my sweet tooth without making me feel guilty. See, this one right here, definitely perfect for anyone following the Weight Watchers points plan. They are probably trying to get this product ranked for Weight Watchers keywords. As you can see, it's already up here, Weight Watchers points, etc., etc. There's another one, not endorsed or affiliated with Weight Watchers. So I mean, they're trying to get ranked for that keyword most likely, and they've decided to throw it in here again with this review. But I like how they included these reviews because it adds that social proof. Another good thing you can throw in here, this is really good, #1 Amazon bestseller, cookies. Basically, once your book gets up and selling, you can come back and re-edit the description to basically include something like this, #1 Amazon bestseller, cookies, because they probably are the #1 bestseller for cookies. This book actually does pretty well, number 2,000 in paid. I mean, they're doing very good. And you can see #2 in cookies. So I mean, they've definitely done well, and this is a legitimate statement. But most people don't think to throw this in there, and you can always go back and edit your product description later. So going back and throwing this in there later is a good idea because it's legitimate and it adds lots of proof and credibility to your book. So then here's another one, The Saving Rachel by John Locke, who wrote a book basically talking about how he was able to sell like $1 million worth of Kindle books in 5 months. It's a pretty good book. He basically writes all fiction books except for that book. So this is one of his fiction books, and he has basically sort of some sort of basically suspenseful intro to his book. What if the best morning of your life suddenly turned into your worst nightmare, etc., etc. It's basically typical sort of fiction stuff, and talks about the book. And then here's what I like about this one. He has a really good about the author section because he has some good sort of credibility. But you can join a few free organizations and that kind of thing and really beef up your author section yourself if you want to. You could pay, 25 bucks to some organizations to make yourself sound fancy, to have credibility and that kind of thing. And you can put that in here and it'll sound good and that kind of thing. And then especially once you start getting sales statistics and that kind of thing, you can work those into your about the author section. So it's a good thing to know. And then he has a really good statement down here: every 7 seconds, 24 hours a day, a John Locke novel is downloaded somewhere in the world. So it just shows a lot of credibility on. So basically, that's just what I want to show you about your product description, which is your book description, is that, number one, it needs to sell your book. Number two, if you can include social proof in there, do so. And number three, if you have a good about the author section, build that out, work through it over time, basically add some credibility to your description. It's a good place to, the product description area anyway is a good place to throw in extra keywords. You want to make sure that they all make sense in there. And lastly, after you, especially if you're doing a product description, when you're uploading the book and you're going back through Author Central and adding additional information, just after you get done saving everything, go to your actual Amazon page and review it just to make sure that you're not being redundant and everything makes sense and it's really putting your best foot forward to sell as many Kindle books as possible.